right, good. Welcome to the February 25th, 2015 Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting. And we'll ask our Town Administrator, David Williams, to read the agenda, please.
Thank you. First, we'll add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance, and I'm not aware of any of those items. Then have a 10-minute public comment period, and then a smell and ice appropriations vote to deficit spend, and look at the legal budget and request for a transfer from the reserve fund. And then look at fiscal year 2016 budget and capital items, including the town accountant, treasurer budgets, inspections, building commissioner budget, recycling budget, council on aging budget, police department budget, and the take-home vehicle program, fire department capital items, CM&D capital items, and cemetery commission budget. And then look at 2015 annual town meeting warrant articles involving, as proposed from the governance task force. And we'll look at a proposed beaver bylaw, and then routine business of the town administrator report, selectmen reports, and set the next meeting date, and consideration of a warrant, and then adjourn.
Did anybody want anything to add to that agenda?
Nope.
Good motion.
Move to approve this agenda as read.
Okay. Second. Okay. All in favor? Go to the races. Now we have public comment, and we have Kelly Hodge and Brendan Daly have asked to comment about Woodland Street intersection. Is that you? Or you could sit up there and speak into the microphone. Thanks.
Hi. My name's Kelly Hodge, and this is my neighbor Brendan Daly. We both live on Woodland Street across from each other. I'm at 49 and he's at 52. And we are here to speak about the discussion that has been on the agenda for the Traffic and Safety Committee, talking about changing the intersection where Woodland and Goulding meet. It's a very dangerous intersection, and usually the person that comes to talk is another person who lives next door to myself. His name is Ryan Devin, and he's been in communication with a lot of different people. He's really been following this story for like the last 4 years or so. And he recently sent us an email. I think there's a traffic and safety meeting this evening, which we're going to run over to after this. But he wrote to us saying that he heard that this project is being presented as a capital budget item, and that neither the Board of Selectmen or the Advisory Committee is necessarily pro this, deciding to make the change. And we wanted to represent Woodland Street as not only citizens of Sherborn, but as parents. I'm the parent of a 9-year-old, and Brendan has 2 children, 9 and 6, 9 and 5. Mr. Devin has 4 children under the age of 8, and then there's another family across from the Devins. These are the 4 houses closest to the intersection, in which there are 2 children, I believe, under the age of 6, right? And in addition to that, there are younger children as you move further down the street. Our concern is that it's a blind curve as you're coming down Woodland Street, heading toward Route 27. When you round the corner, even though there's signage that says 25 miles per hour and blind driveway, it's quite dangerous. And of course, our concern is that maybe one day one of our children might be injured in an accident. And so the discussion that's been raised is about reconfiguring the intersection so that it, I can't speak exact details, but basically it would force traffic coming down Woodland to make a sharp right-hand turn, or possibly stop and then make a right-hand turn, so that people would be naturally just moving slower because they'd have to do something a little bit more extreme than what they're doing right now. And I just wanted to encourage you to think of it as something that's not a want, but something that is a need. It's a very, very, very dangerous intersection. I probably have the most dangerous driveway coming out onto Woodland Street, and I feel like I take my life in my hands every time I leave my driveway. It's quite extreme. It's very scary.
Yeah, I'd like to, my name is Brendan Daly. I'm at 52 Woodland Street. I'd like to echo Kelly's comments. I think there's an urgent need, and I think the board has a duty and a responsibility to take up this item in 2015. I'm out there all the time. Every morning When the bus stops, cars have to jam on the brakes because they can't see coming around that corner. Not 6 weeks ago, there was an accident where a young woman crashed a Jaguar into a tree. So this is an imminent danger, and it's really important that you guys act.
Okay, thanks. Well, we don't usually take board comments. Did you want to ask something, or?
Yes, well, say something.
Okay, I guess, Paul, the policy has been we typically don't react to public comment, but we take it up when we've got an item. Are we hearing the capital item tonight, David?
No, I know we discussed last.
Well, I guess, how do you feel about public comment?
Sometimes it's nice to respond, but it is not it hasn't been our policy to respond, so I respect that fact. This is not an agenda item, so it's difficult to get into a discussion, say where we're at and where we've been, other than this has been an item we've discussed a couple of times now, although there's been new light being shed on the matter that
Yeah, I don't think we
wasn't
decided
there
on
when we
the
were,
determination.
yeah, so, well, I think
Well,
we,
that's probably what I wanted to say, was
Yeah.
that we understand that there's a proposal for change at that intersection. I've never seen that proposal.
right. neither
And
have
I
I.
don't think this board has ever seen that proposal. And we have been, now that we got that letter from Ryan that was quite persuasive, we want to see the proposal.
He has the information that we haven't seen.
That's right.
We're the last to know.
So it would be nice if we could actually put this on an agenda,
Yeah.
get the actual proposal before us and see what it is that you're all talking about.
Okay.
That would be great.
We don't
And-
have a clue.
And that's the purpose for us being here, to shine a light on it, because we did not want this to fall through the cracks. It's been going on for a while. We've seen the proposal at the Traffic Safety Commission meetings. So we've seen the proposal. We're very, we think it will help. We're definitely in support of it. So we just wanted to make sure that this ends up on the agenda, and that you are aware that this is an issue, and that citizens of Sherborn are concerned about this.
So David, can you put it on an agenda and invite
4th.
it's March 4th? And can you invite let the Wilson
We're
residents know
only
about
as
that?
good as the stuff we get.
Of course.
Understood. Understood.
Not a problem.
We do understand that engineers were hired, engineers looked at it, and
That is
engineers
correct.
repaired that. That's all sort of come out today in trying to react to the email that Ryan sent. But again, it's I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I think we all support the idea of doing something at the intersection, but it's hard to support something when you don't know what it is.
Of course. All right.
So we got a lot of stuff to get through tonight. We're going to go on to the snow and ice appropriation.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, do you have a presentation on snow and ice?
Just what we have here. This is a memo from our new town accountant, Irene Larrabee. And it basically discusses the law, and the state law allows you to deficit spend into snow and ice. I'll kick it over to Irene, the town accountant, just to tell you about the dollars that we're over currently and what the projection is.
My name's Irene Larrabee, town accountant. As of February 19th, we had already spent in excess of about $54,000. Majority of it was due to supplies, contractors that we needed to hire.
That's above the budget, right, Irene?
That's in excess of the budget,
Yes,
yes.
thank
And I had broken it down. You can see the contracts were about $25,000. Overtime, because they were happening late hours of the evening and into the early morning, overtime was incurred at $14,000. And then the materials rough estimate is about $12,000. When we started looking at the snow and ice budget and then looking for an approval for deficit spending, I estimated our past few storms that have occurred since January 26th, and they were typically spanning over 2 days. And like I said, it was typically either the evening hours or just around rush hour going into 7 a.m. in the morning, and or on the weekends, Sunday night into Monday. And that's when we incur a majority of our expenses because everybody's working those overnight shifts. So at the time, I estimated that we had spent about $48,000 per storm, and that's over the course of 2 days. And we were looking at, and I discussed with Ed, at the time that we were projecting it, we were looking at about 3 more storms. We've kind of backed off to that to about 2 more storms that would occur. There's one on the horizon for Monday, I believe, that would be snow, and then Tuesday would be snow and ice mixture, and that's just what's being forecasted now. So we're being on the conservative side and requesting that the deficit spend, and estimating that we could spend another $96,000 in snow and ice before the end of the winter season.
Okay, so we're requesting authorization to deficit spend
Yes.
in
Correct.
accordance with that recommendation.
As
Great.
I mentioned before, most of my towns have already done this, so I would move that in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, Section 31D, the Board of Selectmen hereby authorize the Community Maintenance and Development Director to deficit spend the snow and ice appropriation for the remainder of the winter season of fiscal year 2015.
I second that, and for discussion. So Irene, what we're talking about is roughly based on the projection in this memo and where we're already over, an additional $150,000 above budget, which we would ask for a supplemental funding at town meeting for that, right? And that would typically come from free cash, so I'm looking at Mary back there from advisory, so we know what we're talking about. Yes.
So this looks like 140,000 at this point?
Correct. And we did receive a memo from the assessors releasing some overlay to the tune of about $142,000 that we could apply to this as well. We don't intend to take it forward to raise it as a deficit on the tax recap. We'll cover it at town meeting.
That overlay is not in the model right now, that extra overlay?
It
or
is in the model now.
It is in the model,
Yes,
okay.
and so is this amount that we're projecting for
Oh,
snow and ice.
all right, so the one we got
Mhm.
shows that. Okay.
I would add to that there has been a request from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to the President of the United States to declare the eastern part of Massachusetts a disaster area, and if that declaration so issues, then the Federal Emergency Management Agency, working through the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, would fund 75% of costs associated with those storms. So at the end of the day, it may well be that we'll only end up needing 25% of the 150, but the President hasn't taken action yet.
And I continue to be appreciative of the job that our CM&D guys do during these storms, as well as the police and the fire and emergency guys, keeping us roads open and safe.
Great, okay, all in favor of the motion? There we go. Okay, next we've got a request for a transfer from the reserve fund for the legal budget.
Right, the second item is another administrative item that comes up each year, and that's a request for a transfer from the reserve fund to cover legal expenses. And in your packet, you had a printout from the system of what's been paid out of the account, and I'll let the town accountant go over the numbers as for the how much we've expended out of the legal budget and how much we expect for the rest of the year.
About the same time I was looking at snow and ice, I was also working on the legal budget with Diane, and we had determined there was only $9,700 left in the legal budget for the remainder of the fiscal year. And we had a $6,000 bill that just went on this current warrant. So in reality, there's about $3,000 left in the legal expense budget. Therefore, we came forward with a reserve fund transfer request in the amount of $25,000. We anticipate this will take us through the year end, but if there's some other unforeseen circumstance, we may ask for a year-end transfer in late May or June.
And even those numbers look like they're less than we've spent the last couple of years?
Correct. When we looked at the system, we noticed that last year in March, the firm's check was held until after town meeting because it would have caused deficit spending in the legal budget. So therefore, the firm needed to wait 60 days before they could get paid for services rendered. So this is being proactive, looking for the funds, the reserve fund transfer up front, so we can continue to pay our legal bills in a timely manner.
Right, so the approach taken last year, I think probably the year before, was not to do a reserve fund transfer, but to do the supplemental funding at town meeting for the projected overrun. And again, we're tracking, as Mike says, on or a bit less than we've been tracking the last couple of years
Right.
on this. Yeah.
Well, I'm a great believer in paying lawyers,
Municipal council in particular?
municipal counsel
Oh,
in particular. They keep us out of trouble, so I would move to that in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 40, Section 6. The Board of Selectmen hereby approve a budget transfer in the amount of $25,000 from the reserve fund to the general fund legal budget. And this
Second that.
would be subject to a vote by the advisory committee.
Okay, we've moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay,
And I think you have to sign something, Mike.
3-0. Okay. I will sign whatever I need to sign.
Right, doesn't he have to sign something?
Yes, we have.
I guess I'm not pledging any personal.
Oh, yeah, don't
Liability.
you understand that's part of the role of the
That's part of it,
chairman?
is that right? I'm signing.
personally
This
guaranteeing
is
it,
the
I
signing
think.
line, huh? 25,000. And are we filling in for the following reasons here, David?
No, just the signature.
Thank you. All right, now we're up to the fiscal budget and capital items, starting, I guess, with the town accountant treasurer budget. Do you have a presentation on this, David?
Yes. The last time we talked, we went through several budgets, and we held on some, and these are basically items that we haven't voted on, so there hasn't been an approval on, and we'd like to try to have a position tonight before we go on to advisory, if it's possible, otherwise identifying what we need to come back with. So those items, we'll start with the town accountant treasurer budget. The town accountant, basically what I submitted to you is a proposal for reflecting the move of payroll and benefits from the elected treasurer's office to the appointed town accountant's office. It also has a switch from a focus of all the hours sitting with the elected official to the hours being budgeted with the day-to-day clerical administrative person carrying out the duties. Some people have requested it, and I've given it, yeah.
I don't know if we have a written presentation or if this is just his,
It's the budget.
budget notes. Yeah, so it's the budget document. So I think, David, you should,
Not of the one I'm talking about.
yeah, I mean, I think the better way to do this is to
I'm not giving it
request
any-
documentation ahead of time, so we can get through this.
There were several people who saw it on the agenda and requested information. I emailed it out to them, as opposed to printing
Yeah.
a stack to bring.
I know, yeah, no, I think you need to, just in the interest of time, we've got to keep going on the
Okay.
discussion. This is not a final presentation by any
No.
means.
No, so the change was to add additional hours to clerical and less hours to the actual elected treasurer. So the reflection in the budget is the elected treasurer would be an estimated 10-hour-a-week position.
Mm-hmm.
It's calculated at $40 an hour for $400 a week. It's a benefited position. And then the clerical position, which is currently budgeted at 8 hours, would move up to 15 hours to cover the loss of the hours that the treasurer had been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, in the overall selectmen's model, implementing this budget change, it's a reduction in the treasurer's salaries of $22,809, a reduction of $14,000 from the part-time assistant treasurer that moves over under the town accountant, and an increase of $14,356 under the town accountant, and then a potential savings and there's not going to be a savings in the employee benefits. Right? So basically, it's reflecting the move of the transfer of payroll and benefits to the town accountant. Currently, the treasurer's office is budgeted for 30 hours of work. Under the FY16 budget, there's still 25 hours budgeted for that. There are a number of other articles that affect this, proposed by the Governance Committee that will be discussed later. And we were basically trying to line up it to be a finance department, which is the direction that we thought the town should be going in and is going in. So the town accountant would become the head of a finance department, and just the treasurer is a smaller elected position, still has a responsibility of debt and cash management, but not actually performing the day-to-day duties of it.
Okay, just a question.
Yeah, sure. There's lots of questions probably.
In my packet, there was this report. Is that report a final report, or is it something we can talk about, or is it just for my information?
No, that's a final report that can be released. This was
The financial function review?
right. I received this. It was Monday night before I completed the budgets, and basically what that is doing is it's a study of the Massachusetts Collector Treasurers Association manual. It excerpts the duties that the treasurer is supposed to statutorily complete, and then it's a time estimate on each of those items. And while I'm providing for a 10-hour week, 52 weeks, that's 520 hours. The total of all those come up to about 400. So we have basically a 25% margin of error if I miss something in the duties of the
There's a
treasurer.
bunch of question marks here, so is that the 25% fudge factor, does that account for the
Right,
ones that have question marks?
right.
And how are these generated, David, the estimated hours?
We hired an outside consultant who is Michael Lee, and he interviewed staff that's in the finance office and came up with these estimates, and he met with me. I've been a collector treasurer, been finance director of 2 municipalities, and had some general idea of what the time commitment on some of the items are.
There's some surprising statistics in this study. According to the study, that when you take all the costs of, I guess, the financial team in Sherborn, it turns out to be $115 per resident. Whereas if you compare that to other communities, and there's an example here of Harvard, Massachusetts, and that turns out to cost per resident of $56 per resident, less than half.
I had asked the consultant to see if you could do some benchmarking against some other municipalities. Harvard seemed to be an equivalent, and but this is a comparison of one community.
But there's another chart here, budget comparison.
Yes.
Communities with a 3,500
Right.
population to 6,500 population in eastern Massachusetts.
Right, and we marked that draft because it's a work in progress. I haven't validated all those numbers. Those are coming directly from the consultant.
Well, it just shows that there's a proposed line of where the costs are falling for all these communities, and Sherborn's is way off above it, if this is to be believed.
Yeah, and I think because it shows that we're off so much is why I'm still spending time on it. But sometimes the closer you look at things, the worse they get, so.
Yeah, it looks like there's one dot here that would be higher than us,
Yeah.
and all the rest are lower.
So given, assuming that the draft becomes finalized and it shows these results that Sherborn is way high in cost per resident for providing these functions, do your recommendations move towards correcting that, or do your recommendations not really address that?
No, there's not a huge budgetary savings because there's no, I mean, the only way you can really generate a significant savings is if you were combining positions or making them appointed. And
But you are, in this, the combined treasurer and town accountant costs, okay, of these departments, if I looked at it properly, look like they're going down 3.5% from last year's.
Right,
Or the current year.
right, I mean, it's a savings.
So it's a savings. It's not significant. It's not gonna take us out of the stratosphere of,
No,
you know, per resident cost compared to some of these benchmark towns
Right.
here.
you would have to lose a
And
position
one of
somewhere.
the things that really stood out on the one where it's compared to Harvard, besides the dollar amount, and they're a 50% larger community, so you can spread it out more. But the other, one of the notes on the bottom that caught my eye was that in addition, we also pay for the regional school financial functions, whereas in Harvard, that's all incorporated into their, what we look at there. So that caught my eye. David, could you just step back for a minute, though? One of the key things was in the shifting of things around, forgetting for the moment the hours allocated and determined for the treasurer. But one of the key things that was, this contemplates and has already been put in place is shifting basically what are, for the most part, clerical duties and administrative duties for administering and accounting for, if you will, the benefits, healthcare administration, and so forth, and payroll.
Right.
And that's all under the town accountant. That's been under the town accountant for 6 or 7 months now, I think.
Right.
And from all accounts, it's quite smooth and
Right.
an efficient way to operate, from what I understand.
In the current year, we had agreed that I was serving as the interim treasurer, that I would transition those items over. The only benefits item that's not transferring over is retirement, which has to stay with the treasurer.
Okay. And so then what you're talking about is statutory duties remaining, and essentially that's all for the treasurer position as contemplated in this budget. And then this analysis tries to project, and you've done a fudge factor to be conservative to get you the hours that you put in there, right?
Right.
Okay. So I get that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Michael, Michael Lee was here. I asked him to be here.
You've got your thing, you kind of wrapped up your presentation?
Yeah, pretty much, unless you had any specific
No, I mean,
questions about that.
if Michael can add to some of this, that'd be helpful. Mike, why don't you go over to since you were the consultant on this.
But before you talk, Michael, while you're getting set up or sitting down, just confirm that we aren't adding a benefited position. I know we're not taking one away, at least if it's an elected position, because if you get $400 or more in an elected position, you're allowed to do the benefits, from what I understand.
Right. You're not
And
adding.
we haven't created, because we have on Schedule 5 of the accounting department, we've got a permanent full-time 40-hour position, but those hours are already there. They've just been, the buckets have been moved.
Right.
Is that correct?
The original budget submission that was part of your model reflected the movement of that full-time
So
payroll
that person
benefits
was
position
split, was,
with their associated expenses.
okay.
Just simply
Yeah.
moved over to the town
Yeah,
accountant side.
so we didn't create
That's
another
why it shows as an
benefit
increase in
position.
town accountant.
Gotcha.
And then this is an option of these budgets that generates a little more savings and a different restructuring of finance.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I just wanted to briefly clarify between the two charts that were in there that was benchmarking. The first one that had the larger data set that we collected was for costs, salary, and expenses, but not benefits, for the accounting, treasury, and collection functions for all the towns represented. The second chart was more of a staffing orientation, where one town had quite a bit of data available, and I thought an interesting consolidated approach to staffing the collection, treasury, accounting, assessor functions, and those are staff compensation. Harvard does seem to incur higher expenses that roll into their financial area, and my guesstimate, I didn't follow up with him yet, is that that's due to probably procurement of some outside assessor services, because they have a very small amount of staffing defined in the assessment function. So again, it was more to illustrate that there are different approaches to meeting the financial accounting and other administrative needs of a small municipality in Massachusetts.
So the cost per resident differential is not as great if you take into account the outside
Well,
expenses?
I think it was around 90,000, and I think if you add them up across the budgets for Sherborn, it was 30 to 40,000. So it's not going to move the data points too much.
But if you
But I
could,
just wanted to be clear that, but those functions don't have any benefit costs involved. And again, a staffing model where you have a significant number of benefit eligible but less than full-time roles will ultimately result in higher per staff benefit costs for healthcare and post-employment healthcare benefits and all that.
I wonder if I could ask you, for the benefit of our listening audience, to summarize the principal findings of your report in like one sentence.
Really long
Wow. For a town of this size, I think the direction we're heading with one senior full-time financial position that manages staff, supplemented by specialists like a treasurer, is an excellent direction to go and meets the needs of a small town. It's a challenging financial organization to develop the skill sets you need for, because we are so tiny. It's no different than what we encounter with the police department or some other functions, the fire department.
So in your role as a consultant, you would recommend that we adopt the proposal that the town administrator has brought forward for the structuring of the financial department? What do we call it?
Yeah, I mean, from what I can see, you have a crack at this every 15, 20, 25 years, and you can either stay with the status quo, or you can accept the budget as it was originally presented, which is just moving the payroll and benefits over, or you can do this, which is kind of a structural change of moving the treasurer into like a specialist position that is not carrying out all the clerical duties, and the admin clerical would have those responsibilities.
Well, I wanted to get Michael's reaction.
I would say that this was designed to support what we saw coming out of the governance task force, which still would need to be voted on and accepted at town meeting. But if their recommendations were to be accepted, they clearly define a senior accounting professional to be the financial leader for the town. And so what we were trying to do was kind of evolve the budget in a way that would anticipate and support the implementation of that. It's a little bit of a which crosses the road first. Is it the warrant article or is it the budgets?
Well, I'm trying to pin you down. Would you recommend to this board that we adopt the budget presented by the town administrator for this function?
Yes. I don't know what the implications would be, though, if the warrant article was not passed. I don't know if that would require revisiting this approach. So I don't know where that would leave us if the warrant article was not supported as the last version I saw, which I think is going to be discussed later this evening.
At first pass, council didn't see that it would impact.
But I think, again, given the constraints of the size of the financial department and budgets that we're working with, having one senior full-time person there that manages staff and oversees technology and policy and the financial planning and analysis for the town, the budgeting process is a very strong step forward. Don't get me wrong around. I'm not hesitating to support this approach.
So Michael, one thing I wanted to ask you a little more about, because there is some softness in these hours estimates, the 10 hours a week estimate. It looks like you kind of backed into that based on taking functions out that the treasurer would continue to do. But did you also assess it from the other standpoint, which is the total amount of work that has to be done during the year, and making sure that the number of positions covers that, and with 10 hours left
No, we
over?
worked that way.
You work that way?
Yeah, we worked from, time spent, reviewing the warrants each month. And, as part of the check signing process that they own, time spent doing bank reconciliations, time spent invoking fund transfers as recommended by the accounting function, again, based upon the recommendation of the Board of Governance, which was the accounting department was going to own cash projection. So it was kind of, again, working from if these things move to here, how would you then define the new role? And I would add that it's somewhat complementary to what's in the financial function for the regional school district, in that you have a business manager who handles all of the day-to-day, handles all of the staff, and then the regional school committee retains a part-time treasurer who just kind of weighs in on specialist issues.
And I don't have enough familiarity to know what these question marks mean, what kind of numbers those translate to. It would be a lot more helpful to me to know that those numbers, that you had some kind of total number, they're over different periods. And the other thing that would be helpful to me would be to know, you've got a certain number of tasks that are being allocated across those two departments, or those two groups, right? The financial director / accountant and the treasurer office. And from this presentation, at least, it's not possible to see that all those functions are addressed across the whole group of positions. I assume they are, but you've really just isolated the treasurer task. So we don't really have a way to know whether you put an unrealistic burden on the other position in reducing this position to only 10 hours a week.
Since that was two questions, I'll take them.
Yeah, sure. Well, only one sentence.
One at a time. So the items that had a question mark, one was unclaimed check procedures. That happens, I think, very rarely. Cash management reports, that was probably one area where, again, the intent would be that they'd be reviewing a report and approving it, but the report would be coming out of the consolidated accounting function. Tax title, it was unclear to me how much work was done by a treasurer versus outside counsel on a tax title process. Again, my understanding that happens at most maybe once or twice per year, and hopefully doesn't happen at all if we have an effective way of engaging residents who are having a challenge in the property owners paying their taxes. The part that I had not spent time on was around trust fund custodial duties. And I think there's a few of them, related to the library trusts that they'd have involvement in, but they don't, according to at least the treasurer's manual, they only invoke investing decisions that are arrived at by the trust fund board. We're not playing an investment advisor role.
Our auditors, in our management letter last year, recommended that the town accountant be more involved in the trust funds. So basically, the treasurer would be in charge of placing the funds and determining what sort of investment they should be in. But usually trust funds are parked and the interest is utilized each year.
So that was an area where I just felt like it was out of my capacity to put a judgment on around what custodial responsibilities were, and it wasn't really well described in the treasurer's manual.
And have you built in, interaction with other offices and the types of things that somebody would have to do that aren't task-oriented?
Participation on the financial and administrative team that's a part of the, again, the recommendation from the governance task force. I had that at 2 to 5 hours per month. I believe there was some time, again, there was low and high estimates. We took the high estimate of each of the tasks, added them up, and then added that additional buffer. I just know that within the context, at least the regional school systems, my impression that the treasurer's not in there very frequently. So again, that could be a model that shows that this can be a relatively individualized specialist role.
So when you, Michael, when you take these 2 pages of estimated hours, that's how you, and you try to work it out, smooth it out to a weekly
Yeah.
hourly load.
Yeah.
You came to something less than 10, is that what I understand?
I looked at annually, in the budget, we included 520 hours, and I think Michael was for something when he added it up.
A range of 230 to 425.
Okay, and you bumped it up to 520 then, yeah,
Yeah.
so you have a much higher, so that, because the reason I was gonna say is that some of these items, if I tried to put my shoes in the former, put my feet in the shoes of the former treasurer, looking at what I, sort of had not a very good understanding of what he was doing, but some of these things are infrequent where I wrote in my notes, may be light. For example, you got 1 to 2 hours per year for short-term borrowing. Maybe it's 10 hours per year, but that's not going to croak the budget. Support the capital committee of 20 hours in total. That may be light. It could be a 40-hour thing, but again, that's well within what he's got. Annual audit preparation. It was unclear how deeply involved, but it seemed like there was a reasonable amount of involvement. So even if you double that, it's still within the thing. So those are the ones. In participation on financial administrative team, that's probably right, but it might be light preparation and so forth. So, but it still sounds like you got a lot of leeway on the overall hours.
And then to go back to Mike's second question, if David could help me understand how many hours did we increase the kind of the treasury operations area to?
Overall, the existing treasurer operations, if you take the elected treasurer and the appointed assistant treasurer, there was a total of 30 hours budgeted to that treasury operations. That's
So it's-
including payroll and benefits,
Okay, so, but the
and oversight of one
one
full-time
time we
employee.
talked about 15 hours.
Right, so
Or
under the proposed budget, the full-time position, the oversight of that full-time position falls to the town accountant, plus all the responsibilities of the payroll and benefits. And we basically estimated that to be 5 extra hours a week. So we pulled 5 hours out of treasurer that went to town accountant for that purpose. So the number of hours devoted to the treasury operation would be going from 30 to 25 hours.
So that would leave 15 for the individual, the position that's defined for doing the day-to-day depository
Right.
responsibilities and
Right.
things of that nature. My
Currently, it's a
understanding-
split of 22 hours for the treasurer, 8 hours for the assistant. We would be moving it to 10 hours for the treasurer, 15 hours for the assistant.
But under that 22 hours for the treasurer, that was the old way where a lot of time was spent managing and in fact performing payroll and benefits processing and administration.
Yeah, I think the larger amount of time was around elements of cash collection and handling deposits, and that's a significant load that I know that Heather's taken on, exclusively since Pete retired. And again, as part of this whole warrant process that we have for town meeting, I know that one of the items is changing tax collector to collector. So if that was to occur, and some of that depository and collection activity moved down to the collections office on the first floor, that again would provide even more buffer in terms of moving workload to a group that is already has the tools and the skill set to handle financial transactions with residents and property owners or other people doing business with the town as that transition occurs, again, presuming it's voted in favor.
Well, your 2 pages don't have collection activities included as a duty.
No, the
'cause it's
concept
over.
was there was a treasury operations person, and very much what Heather's doing
Okay.
today.
And that's over
That-
under the accounting, okay.
Yeah.
And those hours are there.
Yeah, so in effect, taking what Heather's doing and ensuring that they're is enough time in the day each
Yep.
week to do a strong, reliable job, which is, critical. And again, I think she's done a great job in this transitionary period to making sure that area is well managed.
Currently in that, the assistant treasurer is working about 15 hours a week.
Under today's scenario, yes.
Right, but there's work that's not being done by yours truly that could be done by, the treasurer if he was devoting 10 hours a week to that effort.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of things to get through today. We're gonna have to wrap this up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael.
Well, do we want a motion on this, or what?
We have a motion, and maybe, I don't know if we're gonna take comments or we're not gonna take comments. It's kind of up to you guys if you wanna hear. From the public alone.
Yeah, sure, why
Yeah.
not? I think it's important, people
Yeah,
are
just-
interested.
and
That's
I'm
up to
looking
you,
at the-
we're
and I'm looking at the
timeframe.
number of, well, we've got 9
Yeah.
things, I think, to get through by 6:30,
Yeah.
something most likely. But let's take a couple of comments, try to keep them quick, and Nancy, start with you.
I think this is a travesty. I think this is designed for disaster. We've just limped through a year of a treasurer, and this is not an indictment on David. He didn't want the job. He said he didn't have time for the job. Everybody's been trying to pitch in and help. There are things that need to be done. This is based on something that is not the way we operate, and things take time. And instead of taking time away from a new person coming into a job, usually it takes them a little longer to do the job, to get up to speed. And I know you talk about the assistant. The assistant is under the accountant. There's supposed to be a very distinct wall between the accountant activities and any collection of money or dispersion of money. The payroll person is the same payroll person doing what she was doing under the treasurer. She's been moved over under the accountant. So the treasurer, his name or her name goes on every check that goes out of the building. To expect the treasurer to separate himself from that process entirely is unrealistic. Peter, you won't even sign a warrant unless you know what's going on in the warrant. Every single check that goes out of here has to have the treasurer's name on it. And the accountant cannot supervise someone taking money. So if the assistant is supposed to be doing that, there's supposed to be a separation between dispersing or taking money between the accountant and the treasurer. That's in the statute. There's supposed to be a wall there. So I think that this is a design for disaster, and I'm disappointed to see that we would risk our financial health to get us to a point that we are not at right now. I mean, in our reports from the Department of Revenue and Collins, they said you have no crisis, you have time for these things. We're creating a crisis. And in the past year, we've lost our treasurer, we've lost our accountant, we've lost our assessor, who is by far one of the best assessors in the state and has a lot to do with how our finances grow. We're going to move to a 5-man board. Let's not mess with the treasurer's budget. Let's leave it so that it can be a fully functioning treasurer for the coming year. And as time goes on, if you get some of these new things in place and you see some efficiencies, fine. But to go there now is ludicrous, and it is a financial risk.
Dave, do you have any response on any of these?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think this is very well thought out. Nancy and I have had several rounds today alone in the hallways. But the town council opinion is, yeah, by the statute, the town accountant can't be the treasurer and serve in those duties, but the town accountant can oversee a person conducting treasury duties. And I've done that in 3 different positions. So but the town accountant can't serve as the treasurer. That's the line that's in the statute.
Well,
And that's the opinion that I have from town council.
several times in the statute, it clearly says that they should not have anything to do with the collection or disbursement of funds.
The
They are
statute
the
does not
inside
preclude
auditor.
supervision of subordinates serving in other functions of the Treasury.
Has she reviewed the staffing of those staffers?
Yes.
Council?
Yes.
Okay, so she didn't see an issue with that?
No, no.
All right.
No, that's not an issue. Actually, that's, what you have in that budget is reflectant of what was coming forward from government finance and setting up a finance department, is that the town accountant would move to a finance director position, and then naturally the finance director would be overseeing a treasury function. Every other finance department that has appointed offices under it, that's the way it functions.
Other comments? You had a chance, Mike. I'm going to see if anybody else has anything to add. Well, let's let other comments come out if there are any. Okay, if not, go ahead, Mike.
So I think if you are concerned about financial risk and control, then I think you need to invest in comprehensive financial systems. And that is what will increase our ability to make sure that are accurately and efficiently collected. The biggest risk is you have money collected in 10 different places, 12 different places within the town, all done manually, all with a lag before it shows up in the second floor to be secondarily accounted for. That's the risk. It doesn't have to be done in the collector's office. They have a system where the process is done with acquisition into that nature, but all of the other collections going on do not have a point of sale, so to speak, transaction capability. I was amazed to find out that the police department has its own financial system, QuickBooks, that they can track their billings and their collections for their, for their extra fees that they charge back to construction and other, situations that, they're doing their own site. That's tremendous. Okay? The treasurer can run the spreadsheet, not within an integrated financial.
Michael, may I say one more?
Yep.
All due respect to Mr. Lee, we didn't get this information until just a short time ago, so we haven't been able to study it. But I have seen you can make numbers say whatever you want them to say. And just looking at the final chart in this report of how much it costs to pay for the financial services in different towns, we already know that everything costs more in Sherborn because you have fewer people paying for it, and we don't have a tax base. We don't have contributions from industry and commercial and that kind of thing that helps spread the burden of the cost of services. So I think that the chart that he has that shows Sherborn pays so much more than everybody else is a little distorted, and I'm not sure, but it looks like some of Sherborn's numbers are 14 numbers where Harvard's numbers are 13 numbers. But like I say, I really haven't had time to do a close analysis of that.
And those charts are not part of the decision-making of what was going into that budget.
They're not part, but they're part of the justification for the budget.
That's, yeah, it was the work of the consultant that was submitted, and
I mean, I am looking at some of these towns. Wenham has no commercial base.
but there was
Carlisle has no commercial base.
there was nothing from those two slides that went into the decision-making for the budget.
Dover has
as
no
is.
commercial base.
And
So
it's
there,
a calculation per resident,
yeah,
not per taxpayer. Yeah.
right. But I think the point is that there would be a higher number. Well, I guess that's right, per resident cost.
Cost per resident.
Yeah.
But that benchmarking thing is something that can be a bigger project
Right.
to look at, but just because it shows that we pay more in Sherborn shouldn't be the decisive factor for
Yeah.
agreeing to the budget, because it's not going to change that.
You know, I don't say a lot of nice things about Michael Lee, just kidding. But one of the things he's very good at is benchmarking, I can attest to that. So one of the things, this collection effort is an area where, the town's been striving to do better, bring a lot of this disparate collections more in-house, the effort to make tax collector, and so forth. And so, you know, one of the concerns, it's not in the duties of the treasurer, but it's something that falls within the treasurer's world to a degree, except we have it under the town accountant as the assistant treasurer, administrative person, if you will. So one of the questions is the geography, where that would best lie, it seems to me. So what I'm looking for is really real clarity as to why it's best under the town accountant as opposed to under the treasurer. If someone were coming into the treasurer position, and let's assume it's as an elected person coming up here, they're going to walk in, they got no staff, and it's a lot of financial stuff where it's always helpful to have a staff person. And yes, they're going to be supported and a lot of information coming from the town accountant, but at the same time, there's nobody to say, can you just help me run a schedule or analysis of such and such and so forth. So that's just something. So I'm looking for, pound your shoe on the table or whatever, why the geography of that other position is best under the town accountant.
Well, what we were doing is we were responding to a couple of different things. There have been articles about appointing the treasurer, and also the governance committee articles that were coming forward one was a bylaw change to create the position of a finance director / town accountant, and in that it had enhanced treasurer duties in it. And then the other article was adopting a statutory finance department which oversees the treasury. Yep. So we were reflecting that. It's got to go somewhere, one place or the other. It's whether you fund it in one or the other is probably not going to make a huge difference other than the day-to-day oversight of the position.
But if the tasks are more supportive of the treasurer's duties, putting on a treasurer's hat, I kind of want to own that person,
Right.
Regardless of the structure and statutory stuff and all that, it's just more.
Right.
Getting the job done.
The person would be completing helping that person complete their statutory responsibilities. But that's not, I can name many towns, Weston including, where you have an elected board and a full-time employee that's reporting to a full-time finance director on a day-to-day basis, but the statutory responsibilities fall under the elected board. So they basically have to report to two people.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
I have towns where there's town managers. The town manager appoints everybody, all the staff for all the boards. So you have committees like the Conservation Commission, the town manager appointing the staff. Conservation Commission. It's just not an uncommon model.
So to answer your question, it was moving in that finance department
direction.
Yeah.
Yes. It's consistent with that. That seems to be the...
Right.
So what do you want to do? Do we need more information? Do we want to take a vote tonight? Do we want to move on to the next
one? Well, I'd ask advisory. I think they're looking for some thoughts from us. Last I heard, I don't know.
Yeah. We ought to have some.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much right.
Well, I would say we should have some votes tonight on all of these items preliminarily, subject to continuing education. But if we take no position, she's right. If we don't know what we're doing, then they don't know what we're doing, and so how does this process move forward?
So what's the motion? Do we have a motion on this?
I would say to on a preliminary basis, authorize approval of the proposal of the town administrator to
these two budgets.
For these two budgets.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
And just note that if we spend a half an hour to 45 minutes on
Well, we're not going
this
to.
budget, it's going to be
We'll be back
A
at
very long
I know
night.
Michael was benchmarking that for me, and he told me that was not an appropriate amount of time. Hey, thanks for the help, Michael. You know what, if it's okay with everybody, I would like to skip to Council on Aging, since we do have people here. We have not had a chance to hear from them yet.
Skip the Council on Aging?
No, skip to Council on Aging.
Skip two.
Council on Aging. Skip over to the next one.
Oh,
All right, go ahead. Do your recycling. I can't hear you, Pat. You're going to have to come up to the mic and
if anybody
speak.
if anybody wants to speak, the overhead mic isn't working. They have to come in front of a
Got it.
cable mic.
Okay, great. So, sir,
Okay. My name's Charles Tyler. I'm here representing the Recycling Committee. I'm here because Carol Rubenstein could not be here. She's the chair of the Recycling Committee. And I'm just here to read a statement from her about the proposed budget cut for the Recycling Committee. I'm truly sorry I cannot be present to talk to you in person. On behalf of our committee, I implore the Board of Selectmen, we implore the Board of Selectmen not to cut the recycling budget for the following reasons. We carefully followed the instruction to keep our increase to 1.4% or below, and if a well-meaning committee does that, and then you proceed to cut it anyway, you send a message that the guideline means nothing, and adhering to it was a waste of the committee's effort. The $550 you propose to take from our budget amounts to 13.6% of our entire budget. It's a huge bite from an already meager budget. And is that really fair? Although it means a lot to us, how much difference does it make to the town of Sherborn? By our calculations, it's about 0.02% of the budget. So we have to wonder why you need to take that amount from us when it's so important to us and so very unimportant to the whole operating budget of the town. You propose taking the cut out of the dues and subscriptions. Here's why that line item is essential to our committee charge. $300 of it is for us to enable to use Constant Contact as our platform for our e-newsletter. We've chosen Constant Contact because it offers a lot of features that make our e-newsletter easy to publish, easy to archive, and easy to sync with the town website. We use the e-newsletter to reach out to residents and highlight environmental issues, both local and global. We believe that educating our residents about such matters will encourage them to work harder at reducing their trash and therefore reducing costs to the town. We hope that you agree that outreach and education is an important function of our committee. The rest of that line item allows for limited attendance at technical conferences, and this activity is extremely important to us. Since it gives us the opportunity to learn from experts in the recycling field and reveals sources of support in developing new programs. It's very similar to the benefit that we're sure each of you selectmen derive from attending the MMA conference, and we're certain that that expenditure is considered a reasonable expenditure for the benefits received. Other line items in our budget are equally important, and our related budget would take great damage from a $550 cut. While we recognize that some of you may wish that we would not send out town-wide mailings, we strongly disagree with that stance. We feel our mailings are necessary and important to pointedly educate residents about our programs, especially when we are having an important event such as state-mandated household hazardous waste collection or starting a new program to help save the town resources. Without specifically targeted, dedicated tools, how can we get our information about new programs out to the public? Alternatives such as nesting information inside the Council on Aging link don't work well because the message is hidden or diluted. And the same can be said regarding competing with other groups for the opportunity to piggyback on the town tax mailings. Equally dismaying would be to cut the $550 from, for instance, our budget to refurbish the signs at the transfer station as they deteriorate. Without neat, legible signs, how would we tell people what they need to do at each location? It would also be unfortunate to save the $550 by ending our highly successful distribution of new green welcome bins to new residents with flyers and information about our recycling program. The welcome bin program has fostered recycling participation far more than any less persuasive distribution of the information to each new resident could have done. That covers pretty much every line item in our budget. We're a thrifty committee and we try to spend as little as possible. We didn't load this budget with unnecessary costs. As a committee, we perform untold hundreds of hours of volunteer work to combat waste, and it's insulting that there is so little regard for the work we do with so little money that a $550 cut in our tiny budget is considered efficient, necessary, or easy to absorb. Our little recycling committee is your sole focal tool for dealing with one of the most universal challenges of government that affects every citizen in the town, personal waste management. We do not frustrate our earnest efforts in that regard with a please do not frustrate our earnest efforts in that regard with a demoralizing symbolic cut such as this. Thank you for hearing us out.
All right, thank you.
I would say that I agree with everything he said, and that when this issue came up, I was opposed to cutting the budget. I still am opposed to cutting the budget, so I would move to support the budget as originally presented by the recycling committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, I'm going to oppose that. I think there's extra money in this budget in the dues and subscriptions. We're not proposing to cut the $300 for constant contact. I think the commentary about the MMA conference, that some of us went to the MMA conference and paid out of pocket for it. And there are sometimes conferences, but I've noticed in the past few years that budget line item wasn't needed. Everything that's in a budget gets taxed to the town, and if the money's not needed, I don't think we need to keep it in the budget. So I would be against that. I'd be in favor of cutting the recommended $550.
I respect that. I think just in the interest of time, interest of materiality, but also respect for the committee, the effort that the volunteers do, and the benefits the town gets out of all the hard work the committee does. I have no doubt that they're very prudent in how they spend their money, and I think we'd be better. I'm happy to have them not spend money where they don't think they need to spend money and turn back the money as opposed to cutting the budget. So that's why I
Okay.
vote supporting this.
We can vote on this? All in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, good. All right, next is the Council on Aging, please. Thanks. Thanks, Karen. Oh, good. We didn't have enough. Stuff is not sticking together.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Karen Jewell. I'm the Director for the Council on Aging, and with me I have Christina Winterfeld, who is the Chair of the Council on Aging. Good evening. Am I not on? Do I need to get closer? Okay. I don't want to reverberate, so Pat has taught me don't be in the microphone, but is that better, Pat? Okay, is that good? Okay. We're here tonight to talk to you about the salary increases on the budget for the Council on Aging. We have the elder advocate positions for the Council on Aging as 2 part-time employees who are currently in job classification category 5, which is the same as lifeguard and swim instructors, which do not require a college degree. We would like these positions to be raised to the highest non-exempt position, which is category 4, and be compensated at a commensurate rate. These are professional positions and require at minimum a college degree. The elder advocates have taken on a significant caseload, serving 100 seniors or adult children with more demands each year. One elder advocate works 19.5 hours a week. The second is paid for 10 hours a week, and she consistently works extra hours. And I would like to see her raised 15 hours a week. At the minimum, we're requesting a 7.5% raise for both positions, and our goal is to raise the rate to $25 per hour, which is in line with others in the category 5 over the next 2 to 3 years. These positions are a cornerstone in the social service assistance we provide for the town, and it's the responsibilities of these individuals to assess the safety of the seniors in their homes, the ability of the senior to function independently, and determine what and how much services are needed and who to call to acquire these services. They are mandated reporters, which means they have to report to the Office of Elder Affairs or a designated agency, senior abuse, neglect, or self-neglect. In Sherborn, they are asked to not only report but assist in the development of care plans with the families to help these seniors be safe and retain their dignity. The elder advocates need to be familiar with Medicare, Medicaid, the state's programs for fuel assistance, food assistance, as well as additional programs for housing assistance, home modification, legal aid, mental health supportive programs. Their phones and ring at night, over the weekend, as well as outside of normal working hours. The calls are always answered, and a supported, compassionate person guides seniors and their family members through challenging times. The town has been very fortunate to have these 2 dedicated individuals, and we should compensate them for their experience, expertise, and their commitment to our seniors.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
We're looking for an increase for our Elder Advocate 1 of $1,151. We're looking for an increase for our Elder Advocate 2 of $4,528. And we're looking for an increase for our Director of $10,645. And I would like to add that these increases have the full support of our Board of Directors.
Can I ask you a question about that? The 10,645, does that there's two columns here, and I'm trying to understand what those mean. Is that
That would be for the
$35?
35-hour.
So you're not asking for an increase in hours?
No.
On
No.
that one? Okay. But we're asking for an increase in hours on one of them, is that
Yes,
correct?
the Elder Advocate, too.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I support these requests, and to speed things up, I would like to move to approve them. And as grounds for approving it, I would say that Sherborn has 910 senior citizens in this community. That's 21% of the population of this town. We spend 0.5% of our budget on senior services. I think I have said for almost 20 years now that we should be spending more money on our seniors. They are a significant part of our community, and to my point of view, they've paid their dues. They're entitled to the benefits of living in this community. We should support them as much as we can. And the efforts done by the director have been very successful and great impact on our seniors. The other positions, same way. These are of direct benefit to the population served. To me, it's a no-brainer. So that's why I make the motion to support both these increases.
Long motion, but it was good. Peter?
I had questions, and I don't know where to put them or when to do them. I mean, I'm
Well,
generally
I'll
support.
second, and then we can have a discussion.
Okay, for discussion. So here's where I'm at, okay? I have the same concern that I've raised a bajillion times about the service we provide. And here's what's given me pause, is when you talk about these positions are a cornerstone to the social service assistance we provide. I didn't know we were social service providers, the town of Sherborn. And then you have assess the safety of the senior in their home and to function independently and determine what and how much services are needed and who to call to acquire those services. I'll just say, my wife works for, she's a nurse, and she works for a company that does that, and they do it for insurance companies, which people pay for that service to have done. You're saying in this that the taxpayers are paying for that service. Then you have another line, assist in the development of care plans. Same thing that this place my wife works does. So I'm concerned that we're going beyond the scope of what the town services should be, so I'm not going to be supportive of any increase in hours until we figure out exactly that we're well within our scope. And so I've asked the town administrator to take this paragraph and have it reviewed by town council to make sure we're within the scope of what we do, and also have it reviewed by our insurance carrier, make sure we're covered for that type of service. That's important to me to know that, to be supportive of any hours increases. I do support the fact that yeah, lo and behold, all folks are in the wrong job classification. Even though I don't really know what the job classifications, how they came about and what they truly mean, but you're listed with the wrong groups, and so I support that. And I would be curious to know, we don't have the data that you use in terms of the benchmark towns that you looked at and the types of duties and the hours. So to the extent you have that information, I'd appreciate it. So given that, I'm not going to change what I'm saying except for the hours. I don't want to change those hours at this stage of the game. But I support moving up the classifications and the general related rationale for the salary increase, for each person.
And I support, and I think this is a very highly effective organization with effective leadership and effective staff, and I think, the town gets a good benefit for the money spent with this organization, so I'm going to support the budget. We've got a motion and a second. We take a vote. All in favor? Okay, opposed?
So I'm just going to hold.
Okay,
Am I
so
gonna oppose?
2-0 and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you, thanks
you,
very much.
gentlemen.
Till we get that info.
I would like, I think, we're running out of time.
Yeah, come on, rock and roll.
We got till 7, I guess. If we can do, I guess, the inspections, building commissioner quickly, and then we'll do police, and then fire. Okay, so we're gonna have to keep all these quick. David, is this your presentation?
On which one? I'm sorry.
Inspections, building commissioner.
Yeah,
All right.
mine and the building commissioner. As you can see, we've been looking at things, trying to be creative about delivering services. This one is something that has been a trend in some communities, and I've heard it talked about by a couple of different people about a consolidated inspections department where food inspections and the health agent, the sanitarian, would be consolidated in one department. So this is the first time that this is being brought forward to the selectmen to discuss, so there's probably a lot to discuss about this. I've given the Board of Health a heads up that they haven't met. From what I understand, it's on their agenda to discuss next week on the 4th. So this may be something that needs more looking at, more research, but if we were to reduce the currently budgeted FY16 budget amount in the Board of Health for a Board of Health agent contract of $55,000, it would be roughly, if we were going to put those hours in the building commissioner's budget, it would be about like $42,000 increase. So however it netted out, it was about a savings of about $12,000 to relocate that function. Now, those duties that that person performs, it still has to go back to the Board of Health for signing off on any work that they do. It's not taking away from the statutory duties that the Board of Health has in approving permits and everything. So,
Okay. Do we have any discussion, motion up here? What is the sense of the board on this?
I'm supportive of the effort, but I think it's late in the game. I don't know that the Board of Health have had a lot of time to weigh in on this, so that's concerned me. I'm not looking for that, but I like the idea of saving money. I like the idea of this to the extent that we have a resource that can be doing the functions, and in a way that the town, forgetting which department, I would argue has greater control over the process of delivering these services to the residents and to the Board of Health. So that, but I don't know that for sure.
Can we ask the building inspector what his capabilities are? Are you able to take on this proposed work and do it effectively and save the community money?
So the short answer to that question is yes. The long answer is, as you know, I started as the building commissioner here in November. Prior to that, I spent the last 10 years of my career working exclusively in Board of Health functions, most recently as the Director of Public Health / Health Agent for the town of Cohasset. And then I was the Sanitarian 2 Director of Environmental Health in Framingham prior to that. And I spent many years as a housing inspector with various housing authorities prior to that. Irrespective of my qualifications for the position, and I have many more if the board would like to discuss beyond my professional experience. I responded to a request to look at the Board of Health budget and see if there would be a cost savings to the town if it were rolled into the building department budget, switching it from a contracted position into a salaried position. And the way that David came up with that savings of about $12,400, actually, it was based on the budget request from the Board of Health for this coming fiscal year for a combination of the health agent position and the contracted food inspector position. So the total request for those two positions for the current year, for fiscal 16, is $59,507 as of the request that was submitted. What I did is I looked at how many hours would be required to bring me to that maximum of 40 hours that is the maximum that can be charged to the town for the position, and I'm currently at 22 with the building commissioner position and all the other titles that I have. And what I came up with was actually looking at their request, the Board of Health request, reducing that 59,507 to 12,403, which is percent difference of about 21% for that line, or for those two line items. What that translates to under the current fiscal 15 budget is a reduction of about 24% for the food inspector position and no change in the line item for the health agent position from fiscal 15. They're requesting a increase for that health agent line item for fiscal 16. This also benefits the town in terms of external costs because you don't have to pay additional benefits because I'm already in a benefited position. Where it would cost the town a little more is in the OPEB costs and the tax costs. Another increase in my budget that was factored into that cost savings of 12,403 was also the training requirements for the health agent role. And there's a list of trainings and certifications that are needed for that position in order to maintain that position in an effective manner. And I included that request of 2,409. That is already incorporated into that cost savings of 21% on the position. So there's a cost savings on the salary side slightly, and then a slight cost increase on the training side for my department, but it has a net cost savings of about 12,403 for fiscal 16 from the Board of Health's request for that position. In addition to that, I was asked to, actually only about 3 hours ago, I wasn't in most of the day, so I came in at about 5 o'clock today, and I was asked just before I came in if I could come up with a list of other towns that had some form of consolidated department, either inspectional services or permits and inspections. Some examples of towns and cities within the Commonwealth that had Board of Health, building, and actually most of them also had conservation, and some had planning all under one umbrella.
So which were those?
So I have that listing here.
Great, thanks.
For the board, and
Thank you.
it came up, this was only after a half-hour search. There are about 14 towns.
Okay, so Andover, Auburn, Barnstable, Braintree, Cohasset, Concord, Danvers, Duxbury, Lexington, Maynard, Nantucket, North Andover, Westwood, Williamstown, Boston, Cambridge, Everett, Haverhill, Lowell, Lincoln, Malden, Revere, Somerville, and Worcester. Those are bigger cities. Okay. All right. What is the board? What's the board's pleasure on this one?
Well, I see members of the Board of Health out there, so maybe we could get their reaction.
Comments? Yep. Have you had a chance to look at this as a board yet, Peter?
We have not.
Peter?
Yeah, we received the information yesterday.
Okay.
For the very first time. I gotta tell you, it's too like an answer. We have no idea that anything of this sort was under consideration, we even thought of. I had one conversation with,
I think out of efficiency, let's just try to keep it like this. Some people might not hear everything. We'll try to repeat what's
I will speak up.
sufficient.
But all I'm saying is yesterday was the first we heard of it. I had a private conversation with David. That's okay. I had a conversation with David, and I told him, that I couldn't see how the board would favor such a situation where their key technical person would actually be reporting to a totally different authority, where the board has the statutory responsibility and authority to exercise those responsibilities. So there's been no kind of conversation at all. The board itself doesn't meet again until next Wednesday to discuss this among ourselves. And as you can see tonight, we're sitting apart and not having any conversations at all. So my comments are strictly my own.
Mm-hmm.
But I will also point out that the cost study that Mr. Demo is offering is somewhat flawed in that a lot of that training time is going to be paid town time, paid hours, and that is not accounted for as lost hours of work and I believe that, to look at this as a cost-saving measure is a mistake. To approach it at the 11th hour, with no consideration to the board, or the effect that it would have on our operations, I think is basically unfair. We just, we're a little shocked and somewhat disrespected. So, I would ask that the board not vote on this tonight. I would ask that you take it into consideration. I think Peter's opening comment was appropriate, and that, this is kind of sudden, and it's a very large change. And if in fact it's being made for some other reason, then, that should be clearly stated.
So Peter, if I hear you right, you're concerned about a turf battle. I think I see this at least as a cost savings issue. We're looking for ways to save costs. This seems like a pretty obvious efficiency. I also heard you say that, and I wasn't quite sure which board you were referring to, but that you were concerned about a employee reporting to a board on the duties of another board. My understanding is that the health agent functions would report to the Board of Health, and the building inspector functions would report to the Board of Selectmen. So I don't think there was any turf encroachment in this position.
The selection of the person performing that function, and the confidence and the faith and the relationship between that individual and the board they're working for. In other words, to be assigned an employee is not the same as hiring your own agent.
Well, that's exactly, I think, one of the reasons this is being proposed, is because we have somebody who's vetted as an employee who can be put in that position. And the main reason is for cost savings.
Well, but I will tell you that cost savings is not fully represented accurately. From my perspective, from the brief time I've had to look at it, and to look at it as a cost savings and to, basically ambush the Board of Health with 12 hours notice or 24 hours notice is kind of an amazing way to perform.
I think this information was in the budget earlier this cycle, David?
It's been noted in the Selectmen model since for quite a while, but this is our first. No, but this is our first. This is their first discussion of it. They got it Monday night, so they didn't get it any much longer than you did. But there's some savings to be had. There obviously are some things that would need to be worked out. We know that there's a model that exists that it in other towns that it works. And I had asked Peter a couple of times about the possibility of sharing a position or even having a position under the Board of Health as opposed to a contracted position.
Yep.
I don't know if those discussions have ever come forward, but it's just something that to talk about that I think should be considered.
Mm-hmm. Darryl?
I just want to say, I think you used the term hurt to affect the tone, and I don't think it's part of that.
Good, okay. Well, because as I heard Peter, that's exactly what the concerns were about, so I appreciate hearing that.
And then, again, this is too early, this is a significant change. One question I have is this proposed based around a single individual as opposed to the concept of how that would be done?
David?
No. You're talking about what would happen if we didn't have this person in that seat?
Yes, because
Yeah.
I don't know that there are many people who could serve in all three of those technical roles.
Right. What I had written up.
I think it's very difficult just as, the professions all
Right.
are the lawyers, you think an intellectual property lawyer and tax
Right.
lawyer could do a wonderful job in one person and
It-
really do justice to those technical disciplines.
Yeah, it's a.
And that's my primary concern. At the moment, I haven't had enough time to look at everything.
Right. No, it's a rare find to have it all sitting in one person.
Is there any reason you couldn't do this when there is that person and then not do it at another time? This doesn't prevent you from going back to the current model?
No, you could undo it, but I think what I was thinking is that it would be a permanent move to the town building commissioner would oversee the contract or the hiring of an employee to do those positions. Then naturally that person the building commissioner can't just hire somebody to do it without the Board of Health's approval. Because they could just, if they didn't like it, they would reject every permit that came through. So it doesn't make any sense to do that way. But the contract or going out and doing the administrative oversight of getting an employee in, if it wasn't that person doing the job, would still fall under the building commissioner.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, but to David's comment, the key point would be if there were a person doing the job, the person would be hired with the concurrence of the Board of Health. That's what I consider say. If you didn't have the same person doing all the job, you go get someone and it would be done with the concurrence of the Board of Health. Totally different situation than is being proposed. And I do what someone mentioned called a turf battle. It's not so much a turf battle as one of our being able to fully exercise our responsibility and authority.
Okay, the words like ambush suggest that you were concerned with turf, but that's okay. Chris?
I didn't say turf. Hi, Dr. Friend from the Board of Health. Thank you for the acknowledgement to speak. I have a few questions. To Daryl's point that if this is suggested as a switch to this individual who seems to have...
Would you, it might be better if you could walk over, thank you.
Let's have timeline before we have to adjourn.
Well, I think we've got a lot of police officers in the room, and I don't want to be pulled over on the way home, so I think we're going to get to the police next.
Never met Felix. Did you hold advisory until we finish, or are you going to go ahead?
So the question is, I'm just meeting Felix for the first time. There's a couple of questions, briefly. Under what authority would a Board of Selectmen be attempting to restructure the staffing pattern of a Board of Health, is the first question. Is it a personnel bylaw? Is it a home rule charter? Because if there is none, then it would revert to Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 27, under which the health agent is under the legal authority of the Board of Health. The second point is combining inspectional services and health agent services, as has been mentioned, has been tried in other communities. New Bedford is one of them with terrible results. In fact, they reverted back to health agents being back under the Board of Health because there were many difficulties with that restructuring. So that has returned back to the previous. Finally, with Mr. Zemmel's resume, which is lengthy, I think it's 4 pages, recent employment in town of Framingham, town of Cohasset from 2012 to recently, and now with the town of Sherborn, I think at a minimum we would require some references. This gentleman seems to have more than 24 hours in a day to do his work. Zemmel Consulting Group from 2011 to present, his work he does, PhD student?
PRPH, and I'm in my last semester.
This shouldn't be an interview.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not really sure this is...
It's not an interview, it's just pointing out there's only so many hours in the day to provide inspectional services and health agent services. I guess those are my points.
What I had pointed out...
We all realize that.
What I pointed out to the selectmen in the write-up was that in the event we have a building commissioner that cannot perform the duties, the commissioner would need to hire a supplemental part-time person, as is done with any other wire or plumbing inspector. The ultimate sign-off for work performed would be with the Board of Health. The same thing would go if, in the event we have a building commissioner that's not acceptable for performing those duties by the Board of Health, they would have to go out and get an alternative.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'd see this as a budget item primarily. It's a way to save costs for the town.
Right.
From my standpoint, we'd have to know that the issues or the concerns that have been expressed are worth the savings, and at this point I don't know that I can answer that question on this record. Yeah, but we've got to really get through this, so unless somebody thinks we're actually going to move this along today, I would suggest we hold this one over. We could take a straw vote if we want to, but...
Well, I'm supportive of this effort, but I fully respect and would expect that the, Board of Health would be the final say on whether this would work or not. It just seems that we have someone ready, willing, and able to serve in a role that I think would provide the cost savings as well as perhaps improve the services we provide. And so that's really what attracts me to this approach.
Mike, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to call on you. We've got too many things to go through. Do we have a motion up at the board? Michael, I'm not going to be able to call you. Do we have a motion up here,
Well, I would say that or disclose that I'm town council in the town of Cohasset, and so I have knowledge of this building inspector's activities in the town of Cohasset, and I know that he is capable of performing septic inspections and food inspections, and can do that job. So I see this as kind of one of those once in a blue moon type of thing, where you've got a guy who's both a building inspector and also someone who's actually done the job in another community.
so can we have a motion on this? Can we move this along and get to the police?
Well, if Peter wants to make a motion.
I wouldn't know what to move, because I think it's still we gotta get buy-in from the Board of Health.
Well,
So
we
I-
can move to approve it and vote on it, or we can move to take no action and vote on it.
If we take no action, then the advisory committee is not going to be acting on our... But this is increasing the inspector's budget to take this into, so it would be heard, that part of it would be heard tonight. Great.
There is a hearing.
Used at 7, right?
So unless they go up.
Yeah.
Okay, so we still need some action. I'm gonna make a motion to approve this and see what happens.
I'd like to amend that to say, on a preliminary basis, subject to further input from the Board of Health, but in order to go forward and not shoot down the town administrator, and really on the basis that this is sort of, we've lucked into an odd situation, that most communities don't have the benefit of a guy who can do all these things.
Gentlemen.
Come on, let's get our work done. I don't come to your meetings and interrupt, okay? That's right. Oh, invite me, I'll come.
So subject to further input from the Board of Health.
Just a quick question, back to this proposal, as you stated, what is the legal authority, though?
Can we get this done? No.
Is this part of a personnel?
No, no. We're having a discussion up here.
It's just
We're approving the budget.
where the money goes, that's all.
And I'll make one more point and be quiet. Is someone who moves from job to job every 2 years, and you see this lightning
You're
flash?
out of order. No, that's not what we're doing. We're up at the table now. Paul?
So
We're finishing your
accepting
motion?
your motion, if you would accept that this be temporary,
Yes,
basically.
I do.
Just on a preliminary basis, subject to getting more input from the Board of Health.
Just for the purposes of moving it for further discussion?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, all in favor then? Aye, okay. And I know it was complicated and everybody wants to have their say. We're under time constraints. This is not the final word. This is going to keep moving forward. Carol, you have something to say?
It's very distressing to me to see the town top board rushing through a wide range of brand new ideas because it's all needs to be done in the next 20 minutes. You guys are making some huge changes.
Actually, we're making no changes at all. We're moving a motion along so we can have a discussion at advisory, and town meeting will eventually vote on all of this, which is about 3 months away. There will be more discussions on this. I promise you, there will be more discussions on this. We're doing the best we can under the circumstances. And we'll ask Chief Thompson now to go forward. Well, I'm sorry you don't like how we're conducting the business, Carol. That's your prerogative to complain. Rich?
This wasn't set up for PowerPoint.
It's not set up?
So
Okay, well,
take a minute or two to do that.
well, do you want to do that, or do you want to just do it from your notes, Rick?
I'll take the blame for that, because I thought we were just doing handouts.
Well, this is a really important presentation, and I really think we ought to give them the time to do it.
That's
Not only
fine. That's fine.
do I want to hear it, but I think the voters who are going to vote on it need to have a sense of this thing.
Yeah.
Because this is another big change, and it ought to be done at least give him a chance to do his best presentation. Can you do the cemetery thing? Because that's a no-brainer.
Well, they're setting up, yeah.
Well, he's setting up.
Chucky, do you want to do the cemetery while we're setting up? Chuck, do you want to do the cemetery stuff while we're setting up? I don't know why you're here either. David, why is she here?
Cemetery Commission budget embellishment of cemeteries. I had a note that we wanted to have them back.
I don't see why. I'd move approval.
I think what we didn't know is the dollar amount, right? And the
There was no
purpose.
dollar amount, right?
Is there a
Still
dollar
no
amount
dollar
now?
amount, no purpose?
So how can we vote in favor of it without a dollar amount and a purpose?
What's the question?
Every
What's the
year,
dollar amount?
every year on a routine basis, there's an article that's for the embellishment of the cemeteries. Chucky?
I don't know who's talking.
Chucky,
Chucky,
David is
this is
talking.
David.
If we could ask everybody else to please keep it down so we can continue with the meeting, please. Thank you. You don't realize how noisy it is up here when people are talking in the audience.
Chucky, every year there's this embellishment of the cemeteries article.
Right.
Nobody really seems to know
Okay,
exactly
this-
what it is, and you can explain
I
it.
can
and there's-
explain what it is.
And the dollar amount.
When we sell a lot in the cemetery, state law has us put some money in perpetual care and some money in something that they call the enlargement fund. And that is this thing about embellishment and projects and stuff in the cemetery. And in order for us to use that money that's been set aside and can only be used for that one purpose, we have to go to town meeting and have that money released to us.
Okay.
And
I move approval.
How much money is in there and how much are
right
you
now, I
going to
spoke
use?
to Irene this week, and she said it's probably going to be about $6,000. Is that correct, Irene? It's
Second.
very low because, as you know, we've had issues with mapping, and we said we wouldn't sell any lots unless there was an immediate need until we get some decent maps. So we've
Second.
sold very few lots this year.
We have done this every year, and I
Yes.
think I've moved approval for at least 20 years.
Yeah.
Including
So,
just now, second.
Done?
All in favor? Aye, okay,
All right.
good. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Chucky.
Good to see you, Chucky.
Thanks, Chucky.
And
Well done.
on the way out, I'm just going to pass you this thing that Irene gave me that shows you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks a lot.
thank you very much for all the stuff that you do for the town and for the cemetery
It's
commission.
okay, and you ran out of yarn, so.
Watch something else.
All right, good. We've got the chief of police here and his trusted lieutenant here to make a presentation on the owned vehicles, take-home vehicles. Rick, I don't think we need the sort of the backup stuff. We did have at least one session with you, and I think we asked you to come back mostly on the take-home vehicle part, if that's okay. Sure.
Are you asking to skip the,
I think we've kind of done, I think we've done, and I hate to do that because I know it's important, but I think we have done that.
so I think he's asking you to skip the accomplishments. We all know that you've done a great job for the
Well, the
town
reason
and
I
for the
wanted
police
to
department.
give the town a 5-year historical is to show just how different we have been doing things as the police department. And it kind of, the idea came across my mind after I saw a few department heads talking about some grant funding that they've received. But for time's sake, I'll defer to that, and I'll just make copies of that and have it
Thank you,
available.
yeah, thank you, and I appreciate that your understanding on that.
But you claim that you've obtained grants or saved dollars to the tune of $2 million over a 30-year period here.
Over a 5.5-year period.
Fantastic.
Within the 5.5 years.
Correct.
Some of those savings are realized in the future. Well done, Chief.
I was not present for your first presentation when you did this, but I did watch the video of it, and I have read your materials.
Okay. So I'm pretty much, just for time's sake, I'm just going to shoot right through the PowerPoint. I think it best explains, what we're talking about. And I'm going to provide some anecdotal information that I received from the commander of the Massachusetts State Police Fleet Division, which I think is critical to the discussion. If we can get this going. There we go. Of course, it's fuzzy. So this presentation has to do with a take-home vehicle program that we're thinking about implementing in the town of Sherborn Police Department.
Emergency vehicles cruisers are an absolute necessity for our officers to provide police services to our community. Sherborn Police Department has continued the long-standing practice of purchasing emergency vehicles within our operating budget. In order to maintain mechanically safe and sound vehicles, we have established a purchasing cycle which alternates each year. Specifically, we purchase one cruiser in a fiscal year, followed by the purchase of two cruisers in the following fiscal year. Therefore, in a 10-year purchasing cycle, the town will purchase 15 vehicles. On the state bid, the projected cost of a fully equipped police vehicle for fiscal year 16 is $42,600. That includes emergency lighting and siren, control panels, mobile radio, prisoner protective partition, computer docking station, and installation. This is what the vehicles will look like, the Ford Explorer Police Interceptor. This is our current police vehicle fleet. I put an asterisk on a few of the vehicles that have been replaced, or a vehicle that has been replaced, and I put an asterisk on two vehicles that are due for replacement in the upcoming fiscal year. So projected costs over 10 years on our current practice, based on state vendor projections of 15 or 5% increases for vehicle purchasing per year, 15 vehicles purchased over a 10-year period equates to approximately $797,192. For fiscal year 16, take-home vehicle capital request and future purchases, we're going to be requesting 9 vehicles in fiscal year 16 at $42,600 apiece, which equates to $383,400. We're going to have to replace a vehicle in fiscal year 21 at $56,603 approximately, and we're going to have to replace another vehicle in fiscal year 22 at $57,088. Those two vehicles are not included in the fiscal year 16 capital request. That total is $445,711.
Is that the same 10-year period?
Yes. So the anticipated take-home vehicle fleet will include 9 added patrol vehicles. We're going to keep 2 auxiliary vehicles, 1513, which is a Chevy Caprice, and 1516, which is a Ford Taurus. We already have an assigned take-home detective vehicle. We have an assigned take-home command vehicle for me, and we have an assigned take-home vehicle for Lieutenant Bento. So insurance costs on the take-home vehicle side, increasing our fleet from 9 vehicles to 16, which includes 2 vehicles as auxiliary or backup, to 16 vehicles at current costs, $750 per vehicle over 10 years equals $124,000. Our current insurance cost, maintaining our existing fleet of 9 at the same cost over the same 10-year period is $69,750. Repair and maintenance of the take-home vehicle program, increasing our fleet from 9 vehicles to 16 vehicles over 10 years at $9,500 per year, equates to $95,000. I put an asterisk there because the information that I've learned and gathered from reviewing this take-home vehicle idea suggests that there's an anticipated 15% reduction in overall repair and maintenance of vehicles. Repair and maintenance on our current fleet, maintaining an existing fleet of 9 vehicles at the current average yearly cost of $6,900 per year over 10 years equates to $69,000. And that was based on average yearly expenditures over the past 7 years. Costs associated with bonding and borrowing. I went online. The source that I used as of January 14th was FMS Bonds Incorporated. We are a AAA bonded community. I broke out the costs of the bonding over a 10-year period. 1.6 was the lowest as of January 14. I also broke it out 1.75, 1.85. It ends up being a couple $1,000s here and there. So anticipated savings over 10 years. The current purchasing cycle is $797,193. The proposed capital purchasing in fiscal year 16 is $383,400. Purchased vehicle in fiscal year 21 is $56,603. The vehicle purchase in fiscal year 22 is roughly $57,088. Insurance increase for take-home vehicle is $54,250. Repair and maintenance increase for the take-home vehicle is $26,000. Bonding or borrowing costs is roughly $31,744. So the total savings is roughly $188,108. So the benefits, long-term savings of $188,108 or $18,810 per year. Elimination of cyclical expenditures from operating budget, which will help to offset overtime costs. Reduction of response time to major incidents, weather emergencies, school-related incidents, missing persons, or regional assistance. Ownership of vehicles by officers will help to increase the life of the vehicle. And the average officer patrols 9,800 miles per year, which supports a 10-year life expectancy. And lastly, it's an added incentive for recruitment and retention of officers for our community.
This 9,800 a year, that's in addition to commuting?
No. So we average that, first of all, officers that work for the town of Sherborn are required to live within a 15-mile radius of the town by law. They all do. So we're looking roughly between 10, 5, and 12 for average travel time on the vehicles. That was just actual patrol time.
Between 10, 5, and 12 per year, but that's only another 700 miles a year for commuting? That's not realistic. That's 2 miles a day, or 3 miles a day. You figure you get some time off.
No, what was the number they came up with?
It was a little bit higher than that.
It might have been a little higher.
It was within what is anticipated as the life expectancy of these new cars.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's the real break point here, is whether you can really get the 10 years out of these.
Yeah, so to that point, Mike, I had a conversation with the commander of the State Police Fleet Services, and we had a long discussion about what they do at the Massachusetts State Police level. And he told me back around 10 to 15 years ago, the State Police had a replacement plan for their vehicles, where they would keep the vehicles for roughly 5 years, or up to 120,000 miles. What they learned from that time, 10 to 15 years ago, up until today, is that the vehicles are starting to become more engineered, better engineered. The vehicles are lasting longer. And as of today, he told me that they are replacing their vehicles every 8 to 10 years with mileage well over 150,000 odometer miles. And what I'll share with you is that those vehicles are driven much harder than the vehicles that our officers will be operating. As a matter of fact, a former Sherborn police officer who now works for the state police resides in a neighboring town, and his commute is out to Springfield. So he's driving his car 70 miles each way each day. So the state police, I would use them as the benchmark, because they are obviously in our state. They deal with the same weather issues we have, and frankly, they do a lot more travel time than our officers will do.
Thanks. Irene, did you have a chance to do any net present value on any of this, or?
No, unfortunately I haven't, but I can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be really helpful in some kind of sensitivity analysis too, so we know really what the, what the risks are. Because if all these numbers work out, this is a good deal for the town, but there may be that, if some of the assumptions are a little bit off, it could turn around. It'd be helpful to just know what those risks are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so to that point, and you see these things a couple of times, you look at them closer, sorry, okay? So I didn't do the net present value, but if I just try to do sort of a simple version, and I didn't appreciate the fact in your projection of under the current approach, you goosed everything up 5% each year. But if you try to put in today's you wouldn't do that. So you buy in 15 vehicles at 42.6. That's one way to compare apples to apples. Likewise, you wouldn't goose up the 2 vehicles you buy out in the future years under the take-home thing. You put it at 42.6. So when I do that apples to apples, and put those numbers in over here, right? The difference is closer to 60 grand, not 188, and I think there's a math error on the 188 anyway. But, so there's still savings. So I think we need a harder look with the, Irene doing her magic, because I can't do that magic anymore.
So what? The rest of the budget we were fine with, right, David? It was really just this.
Yeah, it's only what you want to move forward with, the numbers The original budget submission included the take-home vehicle program. This amended last page doesn't have the take-home vehicle program in it. And that means that when you take the take-home vehicle program out, the ops budget, the operations budget has to go up $85,000 to purchase 2 vehicles next year.
You gotta scrub it a little further to get, I think there's savings
That's what we
there.
have to vote on tonight, is to move forward with the no program
So-
one, understanding that the numbers may work out, we may get more comfortable with it. We have to have something to present to advisory.
Well, can I ask a question?
please.
Because one of the things, when this came up at the board at a meeting or two ago, I asked, is there a way to phase it in? And let me explain my concern. You buy all these vehicles now, so 10 years from now, you have all these vehicles that are 10 years old. So what if you bought half the vehicles in year 1, and then half the vehicles, let's say, in year 5? And that way, you replace the vehicles every 10 years. So every 5 years, you would be buying 5 vehicles, as opposed to right now buying, just for the sake of analysis, 10 vehicles now, and 10 years from now, you've got 10 vehicles that are 10 years old, at which point you're going to replace all 10 at the same time. So is there a way, I'm asking, is there a way to phase this thing in this way so that we don't have to keep buying 10 vehicles every 10 years as opposed to...
Well, I was just going to say that would lower the risk and generate less savings. That's the only thing.
Yeah. And the way I was looking at it, Paul, was, comparing it to how the fire department purchases apparatus. They're pretty much every 10 years, they're purchasing a piece of apparatus. So, and I understand the concerns about, the life expectancy of the vehicle, but it seems to make a lot more sense to purchase in bulk, and then the vehicles for the 10 years, and then purchase in bulk again.
I think he's talking about 2 smaller tranches.
No, I understand what you're saying.
And jump in, I kind of threw this around myself when we were talking about options early on. And the one issue with that is 2 of those cars that were on that list are going to be done by July. So if you buy 5 cars to issue 5 cars, you're then leaving the pool fleet for those other officers down to next to nothing. So you'd almost have to buy 7 in the first year. And at that point, you're only 2 away from the original 9 on the request. So that was something that I was kind of throwing around too.
Quickie question? Yeah, so just help me understand 2 things, okay? Why, on the take-home vehicle approach, we have higher maintenance costs? Because it's my understanding we have better care taken of the car, and therefore I think, so I just
You have more
can't
vehicles.
quite there.
You have more vehicles, Peter.
I know, but you're using a per vehicle cost factor, I think, and it's higher than the per vehicle cost factor that we're realizing today. So I don't understand that. So I think there's, still a little scrubbing to be had in those numbers. And then secondly, why 16 cars? I don't get that. You'll have 16 cars total. You're going to get
Right, so we have
9 or whatever it is
Right,
under
so
this deal.
we have 14 total personnel, and like I mentioned, we're gonna have to keep 2 cars
in
stacked up
reserve,
in the
yeah.
event that one goes down, or we run into a catastrophe. We've had a car that caught on fire, much like Ed's CMD vehicle. You have to have a vehicle to replace that.
Well, I would, on a preliminary basis, support this so it can go forward and have advisory deal with it, rather than...
But then we're supporting a smaller police budget. That's the problem I'm having with that. We would be moving forward with a smaller police operational budget if we support the take-home vehicle.
Yeah, but I know you've had discussions. We've discussed the Plan B. If Plan A fails, if people, and we have that real situation anyway, supporting a lower budget, but it's still subject to people voting on this at the ballot box, and it might still fail. And so the fallback position is that there's a healthy reserve fund transfer capability, which they're ready to stand up and deal with, yes.
Yeah.
So I think I'm with Paul. I don't think that concern you have should be an impediment. I'm supportive of this. I think there's real savings to be had. I don't think they're quite what we're showing, but maybe there's a way to show something,
I'm also concerned practically if we vote no or take no action, that's basically going to kill this thing for advisory.
Yeah, we don't wanna do that.
Yeah, no.
And I can see a lot of work has gone into this, and I can see from all the officers here, they believe in the program. And therefore, why not give them an opportunity to carry this ball forward?
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's a good idea. Yeah, looking at it that way, that makes sense. Good. So do we have a motion?
So I move, just like we did with the Board of Health. What was the motion? I move preliminarily to approve the plan to go forward to advisory.
Okay, we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and sorry for the rush. Okay, is our fire chief here? Chief Morrissey, thank you. Tim?
You got 13 minutes before we absolutely have to go.
That's right. Rick is only going to take, Tim's only going to take 6 minutes, is that what you said?
Hopefully,
Okay.
hopefully no longer. I was able to forward all three of you some information on the dry hydrant issue at Farm and Forestry, some quotes that I had received, some write-up on the concern. Mr. Durensis, we had a quick email discussion this afternoon about the capping of that. Unfortunately, the issue being that the farm pond water pipe that used to go to the Medfield State Hospital, we teed off a dry fire hydrant at Farm and Forest Street for its use. And then it continues on down underneath the Charles and off to Medfield State Hospital. We've determined that there's issues with the hydrant at Farm and Forest that need to be repaired. Unfortunately, it's 18 feet below surface, so it's not a project that CM&D is able to do. So that's why the need to go out for outside bid where somebody could come in and put a trench box down and make the repairs. The suggestion from the engineering firm VHB, which did the hydrant system here, they were our professionals that we contracted with, is that that pipe should be capped as well, since it's of no use any further to the east of that location. And that would prevent the inadvertent draining of the pond if somewhere east of Farm and Forest Street, where that hydrant is, that cast iron pipe were to break, because there is no gate valve back at the pond, back at the pump house. So there's no way that somebody could just go and turn a valve to shut the water, and it would have enough head pressure because of the pitch and then down that hill to the Charles that it would drain until it would even off, until the atmospheric pressure would even off.
So your point is that the cap that Paul told us about before in the river is not...
I have no documentation, first of all, that exists. My understanding is that up at the hospital, where the pump house was up there, that was capped up there. Anywhere in between, there's no documentation.
If it was...
But even if it was, we still have the issue between
Yeah.
Farm and Forest Street and the Charles River, even if there is one there. Now, along similar thoughts, the reason we're also believing that there's a in-ground issue, and after all this winter, I'm surprised, we see frost heaves everywhere. We had a similar problem up on Perry Street at the tanks where the pipe had shifted in the ground. There's cement blocks underneath the pipe itself in the ground. It was done by the same company at the same time. We believe it shifted. It's allowing some air into that pipe. So all the more we need to get that opened up. They'll put a new valve in. They'll reset the thrust blocks underneath that. It should improve our fire flow for that hydrant from 700 gallons a minute. And we eliminate any risk whatsoever of that pipe cracking or breaking and some draining of the pond.
Just a question, the 18-foot header on that, do we have a pumper truck that's able to pull 18 feet? The water out of that pipe?
Yes. Yeah, we've had no problem pulling from that one location. It's comes down from in the woods, and if you drive, well, right now it's not the best time to go driving by because it's all filled with snow. But there are some markers in the woods and everything. You can see the trench cut that comes from the pond, and there's a gradual drop about 20, 30, 40 feet into the woods that you'll start to see, and then it just starts heading underneath Forest Street and heads for the Charles.
Yeah, but I mean, the 18,
Okay.
the 18 feet from,
That's 18 feet, that's not the natural head of the water. The water level is about 6 feet below the surface. So you're not pulling 18-foot draft, so that is.
Oh, no.
You go 6 feet below the surface, cut that pipe, it'll just flow off the top.
all right, so, because the head from the pond is able to rise,
Head pressure in that pipe, yeah, that pipe is pressurized at farm.
Okay.
Even more so under the river.
so we can actually use it as a hydrant.
You do use it.
Yes.
Because that was a big issue when we were doing this and getting the pipe capped, and I told DCAM to cap it. The issue was they wanted to cap it further up, like you're talking. And we thought that there would be some use for the hydrant, but then they questioned, and I questioned, whether we could pull 18 feet. They didn't think we'd ever be able to use it. But we set it up so that they would cap it further to the south and west, I guess, or whatever that is, further towards
Medfield
towards
and Dover.
So do we have a motion on this one?
Well, I would do the same thing that we've done with the others. It makes sense to, well, let's ask Sean, do you think this makes sense?
Me?
Yeah.
I spent 3 years working on it.
Yeah, he's got a recommendation here.
Can you just give me in layman's terms, what's broken? I don't get what's broken here that we're fixing for 45 grand.
There's a leak in the pipe.
Okay.
Okay, so for all we know, there's a little bit of water trickling out of it right now. It's 18 feet down.
So they're gonna go fix the leak and make sure everything's copacetic with the pipes, and at the same time put this
Cap it.
additional cap, okay.
Because they got to go down there anyways.
Okay, great.
And so the reason the leak is an issue, there's a leak and you're sucking on a pipe.
So right now you can't draw out what you wanna draw, out, which you
Correct.
normally could draw because of the leak.
Right. You start sucking air and then the engine
Yeah.
picks a point where it can't suck.
Doesn't like that, yeah.
Okay,
Alright,
so we have a motion?
preliminary approval.
Okay, we have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great,
That's
yeah,
all
no,
I
thank
needed.
you, thanks for sticking around. Ed, last but not least. Thanks, Sean.
Good evening.
Ed. So we've got two things for you, right?
Gotta step into the numbers, so
Okay.
just keep going.
Keep going, okay. All right, so we got a bunch of things for you. Have we voted on any of these?
Yeah, we put them aside, didn't we?
I think we voted to take no action on the capital request for Coolidge in Washington, and the rest of them we did not take up, I think.
There was no action voted on Woodland Goulding, no action on Washington Coolidge.
Yeah.
And then there was the,
Yeah,
two
the-
one-ton pickups.
The trucks. yeah.
2 one-ton trucks.
The Ford F-550.
I believe you guys said that you thought I should have 4 instead of 2.
No, but those look like workhorses, right? And
Yes.
So once you,
What we're looking for is 2 one-ton dump trucks. What we're looking for is 2 F-550s. It's an 18,000 GVW truck. They'll be equipped with radio warning lights. And one of these trucks is going to have a in-body sander. And both of them will have be equipped with a snowplow. These are purchased off of a state bid for a set price.
each one is at least 10 years old now that we're replacing, correct? And there's rust and so forth, and you're gonna
Yes.
show pictures, sorry, at town meeting,
Yes.
of that. And, okay, and you use these trucks all year long?
These are a daily use vehicle. We utilize them from everything from hauling around light materials, cold patch, general basin repair,
Sanding in the winter and for that one?
plowing in the winter time.
Plowing.
Yeah, these trucks are used daily.
Those are your workhorses.
Yeah, I don't have any questions on these. We have a motion to approve those.
Move to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Paul's not here, he abstains. What are we doing next? There's a 3G2, what does this mean? Review of paving estimates and equipment replacement schedule.
No, that was
That's not a budget
No,
issue.
no.
All right, because it says move to support for inclusion in the warrant, but this is not a warrant
Yeah,
article?
no,
All right, so this shouldn't have been in there, right?
it was like a summary.
I believe last
Somehow
time the
they're
board
into the
asked
issues.
for a summary of all of
think we
our
s- I think we
equipment
still
and what
want
its
that.
usages was.
Yeah.
That
You
should
sent
be-
me that, what you sent me today.
Yeah,
he
Diane
sent-
should have forwarded to you guys also.
Yeah, so he sent me that today.
I thought it was another weather report, I probably deleted it.
No, so Ed, Ed did put the list of trucks and their replacement schedule, current mileage, and how they're being used, which was helpful.
Sean, you had something to say on that?
I do. While he's up there, there's been a lot of confusion, at least with traffic safety and some residents about the vote for no action on Woodland Grove.
That's right.
He was actually here to witness that.
And there were people here today who talked about that, yeah. Yeah, and I think what we voted the last time, I think we asked you, Ed, to go to traffic safety and explore whether a stop sign only fix was an interim solution that would work.
You know there was an engineering study done, right?
Well, we don't know that because we haven't received it.
It's been presented to you. It definitely has. You've actually responded to it.
The engineering study on that intersection
Yeah.
was presented to this board this summer? When was it? Okay.
Might even been this spring. I mean, it's been well vetted.
I remember going to the meeting.
It's a 2013
I
article.
remember seeing it at the meeting. I don't remember it ever coming before this board for approval, though. I don't remember that.
Perhaps it's been presented.
Yeah, I don't think we saw it.
Email.
I believe the information,
Yes, and Sean, that grew out of a traffic safety meeting I attended. It did not grow out of this meeting. It grew out of me going to your traffic safety meeting and hearing all the Woodland residents and sitting
May
through
not
that
have presented
presentation.
here.
Yeah, I don't think you did.
Drawings were presented here, so we're gonna wait a year.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna wait a year.
No, I don't think the selectmen had said, we
voted
don't
no
wait.
action.
They said no action, but they also said that we should be looking at alternative funding sources and kick it back to traffic safety to see about the options of this.
yeah, so some of us learned today that there was a study done and there's information available. We just haven't had it, and our decision was made lacking that information to take no action, but we also do like the stop sign approach.
And you did say earlier you were gonna take another look at it March 4th.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's on
it's
the
going on the
agenda
agenda
March
March
4th.
4th, so
Right.
we're gonna revisit it.
Yes.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get all the information. And I have specific needs, accident information, stuff like that.
Yeah, two of the residents came in and talked.
I know, and then we were in a meeting at the same time.
Yeah.
So are we gonna be able to present as traffic safety to you on March 4th?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be
Hopefully
great.
somebody would,
Yeah, that would be good. The other question was whether there's a DESA funds for that too, rather than,
Right.
Right, and I think on the 12th, you guys asked.
I asked them to find out what's available, yeah.
We don't have that.
Yeah.
all right, so we all know that's a problem intersection. That's not the question. It's really what you do about it and how you pay for it.
So we can look forward to presenting to you on the 4th.
Yes. That's a week.
Streetlights as well.
That's a week from today, I think, yeah. Right?
No,
Streetlights.
The lights in downtown.
The traffic signal?
Traffic signal.
Traffic lights.
no. If you wanna pull it back off, you can, but no, we had put it to bed the numbers kept just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we had talked that have traffic safety weigh in on exactly how that, actually, Ed and I had talked that we would have traffic safety weigh in on the actual design that they would be looking for there. Originally, it started out as a new light controller, and then it was redoing the lights, and then it added
The ramps and all, yeah.
some visual effects of the poles, and then it became the whole intersection. So it just it was just ballooning up enough that we wanted to go back to traffic safety and originate a design from there.
What are we talking about?
We approved the two dump trucks, and we explained that we're putting Woodland and Goulding on for March 4th. Okay. And we have not revisited Coolidge in Washington, although I gotta say, I drove on Coolidge the other day. It's a disaster, that is. The snow's made it even worse.
Yes.
Okay. Should we adjourn to the advisory board since we're due there a minute ago?
How are they, what's the choreography, I guess, of whatever's happening next
They told
door?
us to be there at 7:15.
What about the governance task
7:30.
force articles
Yeah.
regarding finance?
I got that
department?
today. I I don't have any opinion on that, I have not reviewed it.
And proposed beaver bylaw.
I think you guys got that just this week.
Well, I read it.
Okay.
I read both of them.
Okay.
But do you want to defer that? I see them here.
There was, the feedback we received, initial feedback was that people wanted more time to look at it. That was
The beaver bylaw.
The beaver bylaw.
Yeah, that's great, I think that's probably a good idea. Can we put that on for the 4th? Would we be considering for this town warrant? Yeah, we are, and it hasn't been voted on at all, but yeah. It's still there until it's not there.
But I think that just came in. I haven't even read that.
We'll have to take that up as a board,
Is
Mike.
advisory considering that tonight?
No, they're considering budgets tonight.
So
We should go to the budget.
we have more time for that.
Yeah, we should go to the budget discussion.
Is Rick in
Yeah,
there?
no, those are points well made, Mike. That's understood.
I just wonder if the police chief's in with advisory going over his budget, basically, what we talked about. Is that happening, and then is Ed going in?
I believe the school was in there, but
They told us 7:15, that's what Mary said, so.
I thought Mary
Well,
said
that's right.
7, that she had us for 7:30.
She
But
said 7:15.
okay.
May I request that we have a certain time on the 4th, and a certain meeting, since we don't have time for this meeting?
Well, Kitty, I didn't even get that bylaw until today. It's.
I know,
Yeah.
that's fine, and, we can get in it, we can set it early.
I haven't done a thing right tonight, Kitty, so thank you for pointing that out.
I know, you got a lot to get, we're gonna do it every time.
We did, and I appreciate when people are tolerant of that and understanding and realize that we're all volunteers trying to do the best we can and, and respect each other's views on that stuff.
So you don't want to give them 10 minutes at this stage?
Well, 10 minutes would be very helpful to understanding what you're doing. I don't mind listening for 10 minutes. I just don't think we're in a position to. Okay. Okay, so you'd rather have a fuller presentation? Okay, and so we're doing this next Wednesday, David, at, what time are we meeting? Are we meeting at 5 again?
We haven't said it.
Can we meet at 5 again? Can we do that next Wednesday, so we're ahead of the advisory again?
Sure, because they're meeting next Wednesday? Is that when you're meeting with them? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. You okay with that, Paul?
That's March what?
4th? We'll probably talk about it next Wednesday and take your input and anybody else's input and then see what we want to do with it. And I know George has had some comments I saw. Didn't you?
I have us down for 6 o'clock on the 4th.
And what I'm saying is, can we do 5 o'clock? Are people able to do 5 o'clock on the 4th?
Are you then going into advisory at 7:15, or are you continuing?
I don't know what time they have us on for advisory next week, if at all.
As far as I know, we don't have anything scheduled for advisory.
Not at 5 o'clock, and have to go home and come back.
Gotcha, okay. You tell us when you want
So
to.
why don't we meet
6.
normally at 6?
Oh, we'll meet at 6
and have
o'clock,
you-
and we'll have you.
First item.
You want to be the first? All right, we're going to put Kitty on at 7 o'clock, David. How's that? Does that work? You know, if we say 7:15, it's going to be like 7:45. Why don't we just? Okay, all right. 7:30, David. How's that? Does that work? Yeah, we'll bring snacks or something and like a book, like a couple of books to read. I don't know what you.
I'm gonna be available,
When? No, thank you, Kitty.
Who has a hearing? We do. Do we have a time? We must have a time on that.
What's our hearing?
Farm Pond, trustees.
Oh, right, that's right. Yeah. Well, it'll be shorter than an hour.
I don't think it'll take, you've discussed it before.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Thank you. All right, do we, motion to adjourn to the advisory?
Well, I wouldn't use the word adjourn, I suggest we
Motion to
use
move over to the advisory
the
room?
recess over there, but
Recess,
continue,
continue the hearing.
we want to be able to continue the meeting,
Yeah,
discuss.
absolutely. That's what I meant by adjourn.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
adjourning to another room.
Just
but
relocate.
We're relocating. We are still in session. We're moving to the next door room for advisory.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.